Let's talk Tanya for the 21st of Shevat of a leap year. So in the Tanya of the last few days, we're talking about how mitzvos constitute pnimius haratzon, God's internal will, and therefore when we do mitzvos, we become nullified to God. We become subsumed within godliness. But as we noted in the beginning of this chapter, that the Zohar tells us the mitzvahs are the limbs of the king, but Torah, Torah is one with God. We don't say Torah is the limbs of God, Torah is one with God. Which means that the unity of a person who studies Torah with God is greater than the unity of a person who does a mitzvah. And why is that? Because when you learn Torah, it's not that I am doing what God wants me to do, and therefore I am nullifying myself to God. I'm actually God's pnimius haratzon, God's internal will, which is expressed in Torah. Whenever I'm learning something in Torah, the wisdom and the will which is inherent in Torah, which is one with God, I am learning it, it's becoming part of me. That is a much greater unity than me doing what God wants and therefore nullifying myself to God's will. It's not nullification. Limbs are nullified to the soul. And over here, you're becoming one with the soul. You're becoming one with God when you're learning Torah, processing that information, and that information is becoming one with you. So if Torah and mitzvahs is pnimius haratzon, the internal element of God's will, so when I do a mitzvah, I become bottled to and nullified to and subsumed within God's pnimius haratzon, and therefore I am expressing God's pnimius haratzon here in this world. I'm becoming a conduit of God's pnimius haratzon over here. But when I learn Torah, I'm a much greater expression. I'm actually becoming one with God's pnimius haratzon, and therefore it's a much greater expression of Achdus Hashem, of God's unity here in this world, because ultimately, where there's pnimius haratzon, there is no concealment, and the truth of God is revealed, the truth of God's unity. And that's why learning Torah is so incredible. Just how incredible is learning Torah, Dr. Rabbi will expand on this, God willing, in tomorrow's Tanya.